So I've been ambling along, not thinking about what books I've been buying, and then a big pile happened, and I thought, oh, I better do a haul. First, we will start with something I've already read, and Peter and Alice is a play by John Logan, and it's absolutely amazing. I remember a few years ago hearing about it and absolutely wanting to go and see it, but it was quite a short run, and it sold out really quickly. It's basically set around the idea that at some point it's a real event that happened. At some point, the boy that Peter Pan was based on and the woman that Alice in Wonderland was based on met at an event. And it's basically John Logan's idea of what happened when they met. And it's just stunning. It's absolutely beautiful. Then I picked up The Rosie Effect by Graham Simpson. I have got the Rosie Project, which is the first in this series, and I assume this is the after one, although I haven't read the back because I didn't want to ruin it. I haven't read the first one, but I thought I'd get this because I think I'll enjoy it. I think it'll be a fun, easy read. It's basically about a guy who is a bit awkward. He's really clever, so he comes up with a plan of the perfect sort of dating strategy, hence the Rosie Project. It's sort of like a project for him. I think he's a bit socially awkward, possibly autistic, though I don't know that that's official. Then, again, late on the bandwagon, I picked up The Girl Who Circumnavigated Fairyland in a Ship of Her Own Making by Catherine M. Valente. Everybody's read this. I haven't, and I hadn't actually been interested to read it until, I think it was someone on Instagram posted an extract of the writing, and I realised how absolutely breathtaking the writing was, and then I had to have it straight away. So I'm really looking forward to this, and I think I'll read it quite soon. I don't really need to say much about this. It's basically about a girl called September. Yes, a girl called September who goes to Fairyland, and there's magic stuff, and I believe save Fairyland or something along those lines. But yes, it sounds really good fun, and I'm excited. Then, I got a Persephone book. It was in a charity shop, and I was like, oh my goodness, when does this happen? It's The Village by Marganita Lasky. Now, for those of you who don't know about Persephone books, which is probably not many of you because a lot of people talk about them, it's a publisher. They've got a shop in London. All their books, most of their books, they've got a few that don't, but most of their books come in these plain grey covers, which are really lovely, and they all have different end papers. They normally come with a bookmark in the end papers as well, but obviously I got this second hand, so the bookmark wasn't there. And they're all basically classics that have been forgotten, predominantly by women. What I like about these is that there's not really a blurb, and I did briefly look this up, but I didn't want to know too much because I quite liked the idea of going into it blind. All they've got on this flap is a quote from the book, which I will read you because I don't know how to describe it to you, obviously. What do you think you're about, Maureen, asking a lady like Miss Margaret into the kitchen? What she'll think of us that I don't know. You take her along to the parlour right away, as you ought to have done at the start. To her immense surprise, Margaret found herself rising and saying firmly, "It's extremely kind of you to think of it, Mrs. Wilson, but I was enjoying myself chatting with Maureen in here. Goodbye, Maureen," she said, turning round. "You'll give my message to your mother, won't you?" "I'll see you to the gate," Maureen said gravely, but her eyes were smiling again. Once outside the door, she said, "It was decent of you to speak up like that. Roy always said you was nice." They walked to the gate, and as Maureen opened it, she again gave her a wicked wink, nudged Margaret in the ribs, and said, "The trouble with you, Miss Margaret, is that you've got no sense of class." Then I got Mad Adam by Margaret Atwood. This is the third in I suppose it's called the Mad Adam trilogy, I don't know. The first being Oryx and Crake, and the second being The Year of the Flood. If anyone's seen me before talk about these, they will know that I read Year of the Flood before I read Oryx and Crake, and I do want to go back and reread Year of the Flood before I go into Mad Adam. I don't know what this is about because I didn't want to read the back yet, having not reread Year of the Flood. I want to refresh my memory first. This is basically about a sort of alternate, almost dystopian type world. The world has come to an end, and we've got a few survivors that we're following. We find out in Oryx and Crake why the world has come to an end, but to be honest, I can't really remember much of it. Like, it's all got a bit splurged in my mind, so yeah, I need to refresh myself on this one. Then I got Roald Dahl the Witches. I read this when I was younger and loved it, and I just picked it up for World Book Day because why not? And I love these covers of Roald Dahl books. I think they're really lovely. So yes, that happened. Then I got Elizabeth is Missing by Emma Healy. This is about a woman who is losing her mind. She is like an older woman. I can't remember if it's dementia or Alzheimer's. It's something like that. And so her memory's getting quite bad. As I'm aware, it's a bit of a sort of mystery type thing. All she can remember is Elizabeth is her friend and she is missing, but no one will believe her because obviously she can't remember much, and she can't remember why Elizabeth is missing or why she knows it's important. So she sort of goes on a quest to find out why, and I thought it sounded quite interesting, so I picked that one up. Then I've got, oh goodness, Captain Corellis Mandolin by Louis de Bernier. I don't know. This is a book that I have seen throughout my life. I have seen this book pop up. I remember my nan gave it to my dad after she read it because she loved it, and he loved it. And obviously I was young, so it never bothered me. And then I started seeing it appear on BookTube and people saying it's amazing, so I picked it up. I again can't really glean much from the back about what this is about. I feel like that's a bit useless. But it's in the war. It's Captain Antonio Corelli, a young Italian officer, is posted to the Greek island as part of the occupying forces. At first he is ostracised by the locals, but as a conscientious but far from fanatical soldier, whose main aim is to have a peaceful war, he proves in time to be civilised, humorous and a consummate musician. So I think it's kind of like a light-hearted sort of comedy with a take on the war in there, and I think it's just about this guy and his sort of journey through the war. I don't really know. Then I picked up The Light Between Oceans by M.L. Stedman. This is, from what I can gather, again, I couldn't really glean much from the back. It's a bit of a mystery blurby thing, which annoys me, because when I want to describe a book and it's a mystery blurb, I'm like, but from what I can remember, because this was on my wish list, and I can remember seeing a lot of reviews of it a while back, so what I can remember is that this is about a couple who live in a lighthouse, and they find a young baby is abandoned outside their lighthouse or around the vicinity, I don't know. And they have to, I believe they can't have children themselves, and they have the choice of either reporting this baby or keeping it for themselves, and I think they do keep it to themselves. Even though the man of the husband wants to report it, the wife wants to keep her, so it's sort of the tornness of that. Then I picked up one of the ATP Penguin Classics, The Yellow Wallpaper by Charlotte Perkins Gilman. I have wanted this for ages, and the only editions I could find were like £14. They were like pricey, and it's a really thin little thing. And then I realised it had been bought out in the ATP edition, and I was so excited. And for anyone who hasn't seen these little editions, it's Penguin's 80th anniversary, and they have bought out really small little booklets for ATP. There's quite a few different short stories in there, and there's also sort of extracts of novels and stuff that you can buy. And I just think they're amazing for ATP. But this I have wanted for ages, so I was so excited to see that this had been bought out in them. It's basically a short story, sort of horror thing about, it's feminist, but it's also about sort of mental illness and madness and all of this. I think it's quite peculiar, but I'm really looking forward to picking that up. Then I got Cathedral by Raymond Carver, which is another short story collection. I think this is one of his slightly later short story collections. It says on the back it's sort of where his writing started to mature, so I'm excited to read that. Then I picked up The Marriage Plot by Jeffrey Eugenides. I didn't like Virgin Suicides. I read it when I was quite young. I must have been about 17 when I read Virgin Suicides, so I wouldn't mind rereading that one, but I just didn't like it. It just was, no. It wasn't what I was expecting from it, let's say that much. But I want to carry on with Jeffrey Eugenides. I really want to read Middlesex. I think that would be my ideal next one, but I came across this in a shop and I thought, why not? It's basically about a woman who, she's in university studying literature, and she's studying the marriage plots in Jane Austen and George Eliot, and in that studying, her own marriage plot comes about where there's two men and it's sort of a love triangle, and she has to decide what her own marriage plot will be, which I assume is wrapped up in the whole studying thing as well. So it sounds like it could be quite interesting. I've heard mixed reviews. A lot of people didn't like this, but then that's people that loved Virgin Suicides and went into this expecting a huge deal. And I didn't like Virgin Suicides, so I think I might prefer this one. I don't know. Then I've got Sarah Waters' The Little Stranger. This is my second Sarah Waters. I read Fingersmith a few months ago. I realised until recently, when I was watching an interview with Sarah Waters, that she's particularly interested in writing about sort of same-sex couples and things like that. I mean, I know there's a bit of a thing in Fingersmith, but I didn't know that it was something she as a writer particularly does. So I assume that is a theme in all her books, which is quite interesting and different and nice to see. And this, from what I can tell, is a bit of a horror type ghosty story. About, it's a family, sort of, most of her books seem to be set in sort of Victorian London, in the lower classes, and this is a family who are, it says they're struggling with their class and the changing society, and also with another problem, which I assume is the ghost. We're nearly there. Then I got All the Light We Cannot See by Anthony Doerr. This is a book that a lot of people were raving about at the end of last year, and I sort of ummed and ahed about buying it. Then I thought I'd just bite the bullet. This is a second-hand copy. The spine's a bit of a state, but never mind. This is about Nazi Germany, and that's enough for me, really. I think it's kind of about a family living in sort of Germany in the wartime and how they dealt with it, and I think that's always an interesting take, because people do forget that the Germans were involved as well, and like it was horrible for them too. So I think that's going to be an interesting one. And finally, I got The Art of Fielding by Chad Harbach. I can't really tell what that says. Harbach, I think. This is a book that I've heard mentioned quite a lot, and it's never appealed to me. It's a coming-of-age story based around the idea of a game of baseball, I believe, as the title would suggest. And it just didn't appeal to me, but it was 50p and hardback, and I was like, well, worst comes to worst, I'll just stop reading it. But I mean, everyone seems to love it, and it's people that wouldn't necessarily like baseball as well, so I'm thinking that, you know, even though that is the predominant, what the theme is based around, it's got more to it than that. So yes, there we go. Right, finally got through all of those. That was far more than I even realised it was. Whoops, never mind. These things happen. What can I say? I literally don't have any more room on my bookshelf. I don't know what I'm going to do about this, but nay, bye.